Good morning. So the topic for us today is generative adversarial networks, right? In short, the acronym for it is GAN. So what are GANs? These are neural networks, deep neural networks. Essentially, you have two neural networks competing against each other in a zero-sum game framework. So a zero-sum game is a game where the sum of what do you call the rewards that the players get. So for example, let's consider a two-player game. If one wins, the other loses, so the sum would be zero. So that's what a typical zero-sum game. If somebody is interested to know further, you can look at game theoretic framework. So essentially, that's what it is. So either you go for favoring one class or one other class, one class, or failing the other class, or the other way around, right? That's what a typical zero-sum game is all about. And the GANs were initially introduced by Ian Goodfellow in paper in 2014, and they can actually learn from data samples. Let's understand what it means. It's generative adversarial network. So it goes like this. You've got two neural networks competing to each other. The first neural network is called a generative model. The generative model, as the name suggests, it can actually generate data, right? It can actually generate data from given maybe noise input. That's what the first neural network does. That's basically called a generative model. And say, for example, if the generative model is generating pictures of human beings, corresponding to such pictures, there'll be the real world pictures of such human beings also, right? There is another neural model, which is called a discriminative model. The purpose of the discriminative model is to distinguish between the images generated by the generative model, which is actually the image. We can call that the sample or fake images, and the sample of the fake images, and the real world ones. Real world is actually like the picture of a real person, right? So if this model is able to distinguish what is real and what is fake or generated, we say like this particular model has succeeded in discrimination. And the other model, if the generative model is able to fool this discriminative network, this discriminative model between the actual thing and the ones generated by it, we say like the generative model has won. So you can imagine this as a zero-sum game where the generative model and the discriminative model are the two players there. Generative model is trying to generate images, and its purpose is to make sure that the discriminative model is unable to distinguish between the generated ones and the real ones corresponding to it. That's what the purpose of generative model. The player, which is the generative model. The other player, the discriminative model, is whatever be the image that generative model. If I can distinguish as the discriminative model, if I can distinguish whether it's a real or fake, meaning the sample image, the sample images created by, or the images created by the generative model, I say the discriminative model has succeeded. So generative adversarial network, in short, it's actually a pair of competing neural networks, right? And the pair includes a generative model, generative neural network, which is trying to generate fake or images which are generated by the model, or generated images. And there is another neural network called the discriminative model, which is essentially trying to discriminate between the generated images and the images which is from the real world, primarily like the actual ones, right? And this particular, the advantages of this particular network, or the way the reason why these networks are model is, I've already given you, can we build networks which are capable of generating data samples which mimic the real world data samples? That's the problem that this particular type of neural networks trying to achieve. And can we create what do you call photorealistic images, right, of people who existed, or who basically it doesn't exist in the real world, but they look photorealistic. Can we, I'll give an example towards the end of. So can we, and originally this particular generative adversarial network, this kind of networks were introduced in the case of image handling problems, or rather image processing or image generation problems. But of late, people started working in the GAN space for textual problems also, right? That's also there. Can you generate a document which looks very similar to a real document that a person would have written, right? That sort of research also happens, right? So in short, you can see this. This is a visualization of the generative adversarial model. There is actually like there's a real world image of a shoes, right? And there is from a noise. This is the generative neural network. This generative neural network generator neural network, which is basically the neuronal model, has created an image of a shoe, and this is given to the both these are given to, like, basically, like, if this is given, this should be able to, the discriminator model should be able to say, hey, this is actually a real image and this is actually a fake or whatever generated image. If that's able to achieve, if the discriminator model is able to achieve that, you say like a discriminator has won over generator. And if the generator is able to fool the discriminator between a fake image and a real image, then you say like the generator has won. How do you do it? We are coming there. All right. So there are two parts to the neural network. It's actually, I told you, a generative neural network is essentially a pair of neural network competing to each other to defeat the other's purpose. The competing neural networks are the generation model, which is essentially generative neural network, which is essentially a neural network with, say, n inputs and m outputs, where m can be what you call the dimensionality of an image. N is basically the dimensionality through which the input is taken, which is typically a noise signal, and then from that, if it's able to generate a signal with which it is able to fool the other player. So the first part of the game, first part of the neural network, the competing neural networks, is the first what you call part of the competing neural mechanism is a generative model, which is able to generate what you call data. All right, and the other part is called a discriminative model. The discriminative model is essentially a classifier, which is a binary classifier, which you should be able to distinguish between a generated image and a real world image. That's what it is. So how do you build the generative part of the GAN, the generative adversarial neural network, right? How to make it generate different samples from each sign. So it's a simple neural network. You can imagine this as a decoding part of a auto encoder network, which we have not covered. What it does is, like, auto encoder is like, okay, I have a I would say I have a email, right? And I have a neural network which has primarily two parts. One is a encoder part. So from my input, which is an email, this should be able to encode this email in a latent space, right? A space of variables, which is primarily a collection of latent variables, right? Computed variables, which are not observable from the external world. So you have an encoder. There is a neural network which maps an image to a vector, all right? A vector in the latent space. And given that vector, there is another neural network which converts that vector to an email. So the way in which you train a network like an autoencoder is like, if I give this email, can this network produce the email at the output? Right? Input and x comma x will be let's assume that's an email. So the output will also be, the expected output is also the same email. If this neural network can generate the kinds of emails that I give to that as the input, then you say like this particular neural network is an autoencoder model. So basically an email converted into a latent space vector, and the latent space vector getting converted into again the same email. This is an autoencoder. So this generative model of the generative GAN, basically generative adversarial network, can be considered as a decoder. Basically, it can take what you call a noise signal, and we can even presume that this is the coded form, and some vector, and using some vector, can it generate an image? And initially the image may not look very interesting, and over time, as it competes more and more, so basically this is a competing, I told you, right? It's like a game. So the generative model will compete with the discriminator in such a way that it'll try to fool the discriminator, right? I'll make my image as a generative model. I'll try to make my image better and better so that it'll look more and more realistic compared to a real world image. And then I'll be able to potentially fool the discriminator. That's my agenda. So how to make it generate different samples? So generative model, the function that we learns can be set like this. Theta is a set of parameters. Given z is basically a noise signal. This is a signal. Given z, it should be able to produce an x, right? G is given theta, and this particular, basically, like the network, the mechanism used in that learning process has to be differentiable, because we will be using the same backpropagation algorithm to learn. So unless otherwise you have a differentiable function, you'll not be able to basically do backpropagation. propagation. That's essentially the idea. Let's see how it works. All right, and then we'll come to the details later. Discriminative model is the other one. It's a critic meaning somebody who's trying to distinguish between a fake and a real. Right, so it has to basically, like, again, it has to be differentiable, because the algorithm that we are going to use is nothing but a backpropagation algorithm. It has to compute dx with the real value, with a value of 1 if it's real, otherwise 0. So basically it's essentially a binary classifier. All right, it's essentially a binary classifier. Let's look at the training procedure, the basic idea of a generative adversarial network. So the generator will try to fool D, the discriminator. That's the agenda. And D tried not to be fooled. That's what it is. That's what the generative adversarial neural network is all about. The generator will try to create images in such a way that it can fool the discriminator to get fooled between a real image and a fake image. All right, and the discriminator will try not to get fooled. All right, that's essentially the thing. As G gets better, as the generator gets better and better, D has more challenging job. Right? If the generated images are more and more photorealistic, what's going to happen is what you call the discriminator will have a tough time. As D gets better, if the critic or the one who evaluates his images between the what you call the real one and the fake one, if this is a smart one, what is going to happen is generator has to work a lot to create such images which will essentially drive the discriminator to a confused state. Basically, like it to be able to fool the discriminator. As D gets better, G has more challenging task. Ultimately, we don't care about D. Ultimately, our agenda is this kind of applications typically try to build a very good generative model. That's what it is. So if you can actually, if you have got good enough, what you call good enough generation capability by playing with the discriminator, and by the generator playing with the discriminator, if you have got a good generator, you stop there. That's the typical. So we want to create photorealistic images. We want to create mechanisms which can translate styles. I'll give you one example. So these are some of the examples where, or can you create a video which looks very similar to a fake video, which looks very similar to a realistic one. So that's the kind of, so essentially we use the generative adversarial model typically in applications where we'll be trying to build a generator which can generate as a realist, which can be as realistic at its output as possible. That's what it is. That's it. So, all right. So let's look at the discriminator. Discriminator is nothing but I told you, discriminator is nothing but a binary classifier. It's just a binary classifier. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to, if given real samples, this is basically probability of observing basically the probability of observing real samples, and then there is that's the same thing, and basically synthesized. If X comes from a synthesized data, rather X given real is X comes from the real data, and X comes the conditional probability of X coming from synthesized data. So you can this is nothing but the probability of what you call getting real images. That's what it is. So you can even think of this as what you call the likelihood. Essentially, like this is essentially the likelihood, right? If you look at it, it's essentially the likelihood of being real, right? So and do you understand why this is basically like kind of it's essentially capturing the notion of real being observed over X being real. You can very well see this is if the priors are same. I mean, I do presume that you understand Bayesian. So the ones who know Bayesian will clearly understand the Bayesian rule. Will clearly understand what it means. It's essentially the likelihood, right? So it's a posteriori of real given X, and these are all class conditions. These are class conditions, and the moment you have priors, what do you call the same prior, you have a multiplier for a prior over here and a multiplier for a prior over here, and the priors will get cancelled. So you can actually represent the posterior in terms of the priors, the class condition, the posterior in terms of the class conditions. That's what it is. All right. So that's how you represent the posterior of observing a real, and your agenda is to make sure that discriminator should be able to, you want to given an X, you want to maximize the chance of finding the real ones. That's what it is. All right. So you can write the likelihood function, the maximum likelihood function. So essentially, you can write the likelihood function, which is nothing but the expected expectation of this, right? You want to maximize the expectation of identifying the real, all right? And 1 minus that will be the 1 minus that. Essentially, it's nothing but the so this will be 1 minus that will be PR what do you call X given synthesized divided by that will be what. So you want to do 1 minus of that particular thing needs to be what you call maximize. That's essentially it's nothing but the likelihood maximization, log likelihood maximization. And you want to make sure that the discriminator is able to achieve this. You want to create discriminators which will maximize this likelihood function. That's what it is. So your essential idea is, if V is a function which captures the likelihood of the entire framework, what the discriminator trying to do is the discriminator has to make sure that this function, the likelihood function, is maximized. But what is the agenda for the generator? The generator want to make sure that no. So this likelihood should not be maximized. I am interested in minimizing this likelihood because I need to make sure that the discriminator is fooled, which means that the chance of getting fooled, which is the objective, is just opposite to that of the discriminator. I want to minimize, right? So this essentially forms a min-max procedure. It's called a min-max procedure in AI, which is essentially a pair of which is essentially a procedure which alternates between minimization and maximization problems. So this is a function that you want to optimize. And there are two players. One of the players, the primary player, is trying to distinguish, maximize the chance of happening this, right? And the other player, which is the generator, is trying to minimize over that, right? That's how it's being trained. Also, we'll see a little more detail later. How do you train such a model? All right. The way it happens is train both models simultaneously via gradient descent using mini batches. Basically, you take samples and then you try to train these models. Right? And how does this samples look like? You can actually use some generator samples and a real world sample. So you have a collection of, let's be a little more realistic. We have a collection of photographs which are generated images and basically created images, and there are real photographs, and you have got the labels for all these, right? Saying like, hey, this is a generated sample and this is a discriminated sample. So it's basically a binary classification problem, and all the generated samples will have let's assume that it has a label value of 0, and all the real world samples do have a label value of 1. That's what I have, right? That's what it is. Now you will train D. How do you train D? What is D? D is nothing but a classifier. It's nothing but a classifier, right? D is just a classifier, a binary classifier. You can train D. That's the easiest bet. You can actually train D. And how do you train D? Using a straightforward game, which is backpropagation. All right. Now the moment you have D, how do you do it? Do is trained using backpropagation. Backpropagation works by what is called gradient computation, right? Error for G is basically you take it from, you actually, once you train D, you have the backpropagated error coming out of D. And the objective of the generator is just opposite that of the discriminator. So you can actually alter the sign of that gradient. That's how it's being trained. A simple way is to think of, basically you take the gradient of the loss, which is computed over the discriminator function. You can actually invert that, and that will become the gradient function for the generator. That's how it's being trained. D can be trained without altering G and vice versa. Primarily, I'll tell you how it happens, right? With two diagrams. Generative adversarial networks. So updating the discriminator, that's the first phase. So you have a set of samples which are essentially taken from the real images and the created images. With those samples, you train a binary classifier. Update the discriminator weights using backpropagation of the classification. You just concentrate on this part. Basically, you give simples which are real, which are which are created, and then you train this model. Once you have that, what you do now is basically you flip the sign of the derivative. Basically, backpropagation from here, you just flip you have a gradient computer over here. What you do is you flip the sign of the gradient and you backpropagate back to update the generator weights using again backpropagation with a flipped gradient. That's how it's being trained. Now I think you should be able to understand this. Say a simple way is basically the gradient. You can do gradient descent over here. You flip the sign of the gradient to get the gradient for the generator. D can be, and the way it happens is like you first train discriminator. All right, then you have some weights for the discriminator network, then you get to the generator and try to train the network, then you again evaluate basically like the entire framework, and what is going to happen is like you can do it over like box iterations and you keep doing better and better. So it happens like this. If you look at the way in which the generative adversarial networks works is primarily, this is you need to understand this. D can be trained without altering G. What it means is basically, you have, this is what it is. You don't do anything with this. You train this fellow, this binary classifier with fixing, I mean basically having fixed weights over G, and then you do all that update. Once you do that, you flip the gradient and fix the weights over here, and then come down here and try to do like kind of essentially you have only one way of understanding the context of making errors, which is from the discriminator. And after evaluating that gradient, primarily like the notion of error from the output, because you have labels only for the real and your observability over the training data. Your training data is available only for the discriminator outcome, and then what you do is based on that error you do this, you train this, and then you invert and train this, then you can actually go back through these iterations. So fixing this you train this, right? Fixing this you train this, fixing this you train this, and you alter between the two, right? And there is a flipping happening over the gradient over this context, because the gradient here says the notion of, it captures the notion of what you call the direction which the error will come down in the discriminator context. But the agenda for the generator is to make sure that error goes up. So which means that we can actually flip the sign of the gradient and you can train this network. That's essentially the model. All right, it's again backpropagation algorithm. So good, and that's why it works. It's just an intuition. It knows G has reinforcement task. What is G trying to do? G is trying to fool this fellow, right? The moment discriminator does a good job, G has to basically take that signal and then adjust itself better, make it itself better, right? It knows when it does good. So if it's able to fool D, generator knows that yes, I'm doing a good job. All right, and we can actually people have also started exploring the generator training with a reinforcement framework, which is still in research. But such frameworks are not very easy to what do you call to represent and implement. So essentially what we do is backpropagate through D, provides G with a supervised signal. Better D, better the signal will be. So essentially what you do is, the moment you alter and use the gradient computed at D to train G, what is essentially doing is you are essentially taking what you call a signal, a feedback from the discriminator's outcome and use it to train G. It's essentially, you can't call it a reinforcement learning mechanism, but it's actual reinforcement. So yeah, when do you reach equilibrium between basically, do you really reach an equilibrium between these two networks? Yeah, I mean, we basically like our agenda typically, that's what I initially said, these seldom fold, because if you have enough of samples, training a good discriminative model is an easy job. All right, and if you have a good discriminative model, and if the competitor, which is the NLP model, can compete itself to full discriminative model, which is already trained on a reasonably good data set, then you'll have a good generator. That's the typical thing. But G still learns because it gets a gradient telling it how. So basically, even if D is very good, always G has an opportunity to improve itself. That's what it is. All right. Difficulties are, networks are difficult to converge, because our agenda is not typically to get a convergence over, I mean, get a balance, and basically the equilibrium over the discriminator and generator. Rather, right, ideal goal is generator and discriminator reach to some desired equilibrium, but this is rare, which we don't. GANs are yet to converge on large problems. So many ImageNet problems, GANs don't converge. Right, common failure cases are discriminator becomes too strong too quickly, and generator ends up not learning anything. So that can happen. Discriminator is so stringent. Anything that you generate, you reject. All right, you have overfit the discriminator, you'll end up in a problem. Right? The generator learns only very specific weakness. So essentially, generator can just specialize a certain class of images it does well, otherwise it fails. That is a possibility. Generate learns only very small subset. So these two are connected. So that's some of the problems with the networks. And how do you address this? People have come out with a lot of research outcome. You can normalize the input vectors, right? The things that goes in, and then you try basically like including the training data and the noise signal passed on. You can use better loss functions. You can do batch normalization, which is essentially after every activation computation, you actually normalize the vector in such a way that they don't overfit. So that's that sort of context you can apply. Sparse gradients using, avoid sparse gradients using. You can use activation functions of this kind, so that you don't end up in losing your gradient vectors. All right. Signals can be right. The signals that you train can be noisy labels or soft, meaning let's say, okay, yeah, you don't give a lot of importance to the hard labeling. Rather, you say, okay, I can have a fuzzy labeling of images, so that there are areas, we agree that there are areas where there is gray, right, which you don't know, right? We can track failures, give better feedbacks, right? And you have got labeled data, actually labeled data. Say, for example, these are images of people and these are images of cars. Let the model, learn from that, right? Can you use labeled data, right? Rather than now in our discriminator case, we have only labels which says whether the image is the real image or a bad image or a created image, right? Beyond that, if you have labels, use them. Add noise to input so that and decay over time, so that so you introduce specifically over the real signals, you can introduce noise, so that you also actually give some opportunity for the model to generalize. That's another. These are some of the research dimensions people have proposed. And better variations of GAN is another interesting thought, right? I want to stop this discussion with one example. So this is called a cycle GAN. Cycle GAN can essentially do style transfer problem, can address style transfer problem. So change the style of an image while preserving the content. So for example, a monarch to a photo, a zebra to a horse, summer location. If it like kind of, how does it look in a winter, whatever, right? So can you do a style transfer, right? And you don't have paired images. If you have paired images, the problem is pretty straightforward. You can train a neural network on a paired set of images. Say like, hey, these are all summer pictures and these are all winter pictures. Train that association, right? That's not the case. You have a collection of images which are summer pictures. You have a collection of images which are winter pictures. Can you train a neural model which will be essentially do a style transfer, right? Given a summer image, you should be able to do winter. It should be able to create that winter one, and the winter image, you should be able to create a summer problem. These are the kind of problems that cycle GANs typically address. All right. So we don't have paired data. I've already told you. They can work straight on unpaired data. Train the way I'll show you this picture. The way it works is it works with a pair of generators and a discriminator. Let's go back. Train two different generator nets to go one from style 1 to style 2 and the other way around, right? Make sure the generator samples of style 2 are indistinguishable from the real images by a discriminator net. To make sure generators, so they have to be cycle consistent, in the sense max from style 1 to style 2 and back again should give you almost the original image. That's what the agenda is. So it goes like this. If there's an input image, there's a generator which is trying to generate the expected one, which is the transfer with the one with the style, the transfer style, and the other generator try to transfer the style of the generated image to the reconstruct the original image, and that's what it is. And what is meant by cycle consistent, meaning mapping from style 1 to style 2 and back again should give you almost original. So once you transfer the style from here to here and from here to the next reconstruct image, there should be minimal change. Basically difference between the two. That's what they try to achieve, and what the discriminator trying to do is discriminator tries to generate zebra image from the real one. So essentially, so this is what it is. And this kind of networks are built to do style transfer. Is just an example, and this is not just the one. There is something called DC GAN. There are GANs which are used to create images of people who doesn't actually exist. So these are some of the applications of GAN, and this is again a small topic in your course, I thought I'll just introduce that, and that's pretty much about GAN. And if somebody is interested to go further, explore further, I would be more than happy to collaborate, because we have some interest in pushing GAN research further. And yeah, that's pretty much about of generative adversarial network, which are essentially a pair of competing networks competing to defeat the other. It's a zero-sum game. So generator tries to create artificial images, and discriminator try to